Hello beer tubers and welcome to another beer review with me, Peter, the master of Hoppets. And it is that time of year, it's putty time. I think I might be the last person to do a video on this because everyone and their mothers have done videos or blog posts or Instagram posts about putty. But you know what? I want to try putty because putty is a beer that has a special place in my heart because it was like the first European double IPA when I was just blown away. So many people love to shit on putty. So many people love to be like, oh, it's just too hyped, whatever. This might not be the best hazy double IPA around anymore in Europe. But it's what paved the way for what is here now. This was one of the first. It was one of the first beers to get hyped. It was all this. And a lot of people, like, I even saw someone comment about, how did the brewery build this hype? And did they do that purposely to try and sell the beer? Hype has to occur naturally from consumers. Otherwise, it doesn't work. If you try and force hype as a brewer, people won't buy into that. Like, it has to be natural. It has to be coming from people who drink your product or your beer and they love it and they scream about it. That's the only way it works. You can't fake hype. That's just how it is. And then there can be overhype, that's for sure. There can also be underhype, that's for sure. But it has to be natural. And the hype around putty was natural. And again, it paved the way for so many. And I think a lot of brewers now that do haze bombs and whatnot in Europe, they owe a lot to this beer. And I've always thoroughly enjoyed it. I might not enjoy hazies these days as much as I did in the past, but I've always really enjoyed a putty. And it might not have been the best of the best in the last few years. Like I used to give it 100 back in the day, but that might also just be because my palate's changed and hop crop varieties are different. Like everything in beer is pretty much like a farm product and or agricultural product. And it's like, with grapes, vintages vary. It's the same with hops. It's the same with malt. It's the same, it's the same. But for some reason, because of the Industrial Revolution, it's ingrained into people's mind that beer is always the same. A Pilsner, like a macro beer, it always has to taste the same. But that's actually not really the case because the variables in terms of the ingredients you use are high, especially with the hop like Galaxy that's in here. Like it's really fluctuated in quality, and you can even see it if you don't have like the availability to cherry pick hops from producers. As a brewer, sometimes you get a crop that's not as good as the previous one. That's just the game. So that's how it is. It's an agricultural product, and you can't always be sure of what you get. That's also part of it. There's so many things, and a lot of people don't think of all those things. And I think that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed becoming, working in the industry and becoming a brewer. Is like I see things so much clearer in terms of rating and thinking about things these days. It's not just slapping a number on something because I think it's good or bad. Or there's so many more things going on. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about putty. So this here release of putty was canned on the 18th of January, so it turns a month old tomorrow, 4 weeks. It says "of the put," as it always said on the back. And do you want to hear something funny? I mentioned it before, but one of our tasting notes from a YouTube video back in the day was on one of the labels, which was a fun little homage. It was floating mangoes, and I think that's from the very first video where Brett is like, "Oh, this is like floating mangoes." So this year, as always, putty is hopped with Ølkassen, Galaxy, and Mosaic. It's 8%. Also, thanks a ton to Ølkassen for the beer. I got all the Verdant beers, this one and the other reviews you'll see on Ølkassen. It's a nice Danish web shop. They have a very good selection of beer, and I think they're one of the places that got the biggest selection of Verdant IPAs. Putty is, of course, gone. It sells out like this, but a lot of the other releases are still available on there. They got like the 20, 10 watt, 40 watt series, and a couple others. Pours a nice, hazy, golden orange color. It looks like putty. It's always been pretty much like that like this golden orange. It has some slight bright nuances to it, but I think it might have looked a bit darker back in the day, but yeah, it looks like putty. Whitehead, let's check out the aroma on the putty. Yeah, it smells really nice. It really actually encompasses the Galaxy overripe juicy melon aspect. And it's not just like spicy, weird. Like a lot of people don't like Galaxy these days because they've had a lot of beers with bad Galaxy crops. This is a good crop of Galaxy, just judging by the aroma. But because you're getting that overripe, juicy cantaloupe melon. Yeah, it smells nice. There's some bright dankness. Mosaic. It's really nice that Mosaic's in here because it keeps everything in check of not being. I don't know. Maybe a sake also. So that's quite mango heavy. But Mosaic just like keeps things in check. It seems like this does not go too overripe, gushing, juicy. There is a little bit of like slightly oniony, slightly resiny going on underneath, which is quite nice. It builds complexity. And then like blueberry kush, which is really, really awesome. But it's heavy on mango as well, and it's heavy on stone fruit, like overripe, gushing, floating mangoes. uh, yeah, it actually smells like a really good vintage, but it also smells to the sweet side. But I think putty's always been somewhat sweet. I've become much more susceptible to sweetness these days, just because I prefer drier beer and I'm getting more sick of sweet. But let's drink putty for the second time. Cheers. Of 23, of course. Otherwise, this would be the 6th sometime. It's not crazily sweet. That's really nice. Yeah, this is a very nice vintage of putty. It's some nice, decent bitterness. Nice drying finish. Definitely a lot of overripe, juicy esters, but it's not like too much. And there is definitely a little bit of like, again, like almost like Nelson gasoline dankness. And a little bit of spice, a little bit of oniony kind of mosaic notes, but otherwise like a little bit of blueberry kush. And then like it's like got so much Galaxy. There's so much of that overripe cantaloupe melon type flavor. And also loads of stone fruit, but I think that's mostly the yeast. And then overripe floating mangoes. 6 years ago we reviewed this for the first time. That's crazy. Let's not talk about how old this channel is. This is actually a very nice double IPA. I'm not like super excited over it, but it's quite nice. I like it more than I think you're gonna see this first, but I also have a review coming of Conventional Tactics, and just Michael and I shot the 10, 20, and 40 watt in like a session. And I think I like this one more than most of the others, or at least somewhat equally to 40 watt. Like it's somewhat bright as well. It's not all just gushing juice, which is nice, although there's a lot of it. And it even has a little bit of almost like pepper or black pepper or something, which could be Galaxy. And it's Noble Hop Heritage. In terms of grade, I think putty is great. It's awesome. I'm just not enjoying these kind of beers as much as I used to, really. In terms, I'm gonna drop it down even from previous years, and that's not like that's more down to personal preference than anything, really. Like objectively, this would be around a small 95, like a world class hazy double IPA, juicy banger. People will love it. It's soft, it's fluffy, soft malt complexity is what you want, really. But personally, I want more bright, stingy bangers these days. Like, and maybe in 6 years' time, like 6 years from this review, in 6 years' time now, I don't want bright, stingy bangers. I want this, I don't know, palates and flavors change. But like, I prefer those like Fiden's, Monkish, Green Cheek, North Park style, like really bright bangers instead of like really big juice bombs that are beer hop centric. Or for that matter, really, I'd rather just have a West Coast IPA. But this is a great hazy double. You can't fault Putty's reputation on what it's done for this style in Europe. Yeah, like a 93, 94. I don't know. I don't feel like it's world class. It's close. But I think maybe it's just because I just want a different style. Like, again, subjectively. Objectively, yeah, it would be world class. It would be something like a 95. If you want these big haze juice bombs. But again, I'll tell you guys both things, because there's personal preference and there's objectivity. And you can always look at styles objectively as well, even if you don't like them that much or have started to have a falling out with them. But yeah, if you guys had the chance to try the 23 vintage of Putty, if you got to take it up the putt, let me know what you thought of it. Very nice stuff as always. And yeah, if you had it, let me know. As always, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page and Twitter and Instagram. Give this video a thumbs up as well if you enjoyed it, and ring the bell for future notifications about videos, and check out Ølkassen. And I'm going to say cheers and see you guys in another beer review.